security is the fact that we borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending.
Hello, Austin. Welcome to Lone Star Politics. I'm the Doctor of Politics, Dr. Love, and I'm very excited to be back with you. I'm sorry I missed last week, but loyal listener, thank you for tuning in. And thank you for calling, saying that you missed me. I really appreciated that. One person said that I am just the right amount of crazy for a Wednesday evening. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And this is KVRX 91.7. We broadcast from the University of Texas, and I say just a few crazy things during my show, so I'd like you to know that everything I say, just consider that opinion. It is mine and mine alone. Only hold me responsible and accountable for what is said on this show. It is not the opinion of KVRX, the University of Texas, the state of Texas, or the United States of America, nor the United Nations. What I say is probably not sanctioned by any government, probably because it requires that you think. So, welcome to the show. Now that I've gotten all the legal disclaimers out of the way, I'm so excited to be back. And joining me in the studio is George McHugh of the Libertarian Longhorns. He is president of that fine organization, who actually this week brought Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson to campus. George, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. I want to clarify real quick. I'm actually the vice president. Jose Nina is the president. But
Vice president.
Yes, yeah, you're good. How are you doing? Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you. So let's get down to business. Let's fill people in about this event on Monday. How is it that you were able to get the governor to come to the university?
It kind of fell on my lap. So the LP office is here off of Guadalupe Street, and I was talking, and one thing led to another, and I got in touch directly with the campaign, and they wanted to come to UT Austin, and I said yes.
That's fantastic. This is a rather hotbed for, I don't necessarily want to say libertarian thought, but certainly Austin is a hotbed for freedom. You have a lot of different individuals who dress differently, listen to all kinds of different music, and this is kind of an alternative city. People are here exercising their own personal freedoms and doing what they want to do and doing what they think is important. And I think this is a great place for those libertarian ideas of freedom and personal accountability to kind of foster.
Yeah, Austin is definitely a place where the freedom of expression is like a part of our culture, and freedom festers whenever you can express yourself.
And so tell us about the event. Who was there, and how was this all set up?
Well, the way that the lineup worked is that Gary, he came in and spoke first because he had to catch a flight, but we also had plenty of other speakers. We had Derek Marble. He was a member of the Iraq Veterans Against the War, and he had a really moving speech, and I had several people approached me afterward trying to get in contact with him. And then after he spoke, we had Brittany Moore of the Libre Initiative, which is it's a Hispanic economic empowerment group that focuses on preaching the ideas of economic freedom in the Latino and Hispanic communities.
When we had Ron Paul on campus, I was surprised that so many Mexican Americans and Latinos were excited about him. I feel like if you come to this country in search of freedom from another country, then you really expect for the United States government to abide by the U.S. Constitution, and you expect to have the freedom that you've dreamed about in coming to America. And Mexican immigrants, a lot of them get that, and they're like, wait, this is way too much government. This is not what I signed up for. Tell me about this Libertarian Party that is low tax and high personal responsibility and gets the government out of the way.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. My mom's actually Mexican. So,
really?
Yeah, that's right. And,
is she from Mexico?
Yeah, she's from the city. She's from the capital.
And does she share similar political philosophies and ideologies as you?
Well, she's more of a common sense, down-to-earth type of person. She doesn't like to think too much about politics. But I'll tell you what, our family knows the errors and flaws of central banking firsthand. They lost most of their wealth in the currency devaluation.
So, the currency devaluation of Mexico?
Yeah, in the 80s and the 90s, that's right.
Wow. So they're suspicious of the banking system.
Well, I mean, you come to a new place to seek out opportunity. You don't think about what's causing all the strife and all the troubles, so.
And so who were some of the other speakers?
Right after Brittany spoke, we had Michael Cargill. He's a former Democrat who ran for Travis County Constable, Precinct 2.
I'm very familiar with Michael Cargill. I was his campaign manager for we ran for Constable in Precinct 2 against a Don Ballesteros, known as the Cocaine Constable, who, while working for the Department of Public Safety, assisted in smuggling drugs into the United States. And somehow we lost to him. It just amazes me that the public would rather vote for, at least the Democrats in Austin, some of them would rather vote for a gentleman who smuggled cocaine over a guy who likes guns.
Well, yeah, it seems like definitely the gun issue is close and dear to the Democrats' platform. That if you even suggest that, hey, maybe a concealed carry might save some lives, in the worst cases, like take for example, how long does it take for me to respond to an incident if I have a gun at my hand, compared to waiting. I think the average wait time for the police is like 5 minutes, 2 minutes, something crazy.
It's definitely not 2. That'd be lightning fast.
I'm being generous.
Yeah, it takes a while for the police to get there. And who was the last speaker?
We had John J. Myers. He's the Libertarian Party candidate who's running for the for Senate, the U.S. Senate. So
Really?
That's right, for Texas.
Oh, that's fun. He kind of had a stand-up comedian approach to his speech.
Oh, he's definitely a character. That's right. Yeah, he got the crowd really riled up, though.
I think he said, did you watch these, the Democratic and Republican National Committee meetings? He's like, this is ridiculous. They do a yay or nay voice vote, and people say nay, and he's like, and then they read off the teleprompter, is the opinion of the chair that 2/3 majority have said yay. When anyone who is listening could hear that most delegates voted against whatever the heck they were proposing. It's laughable what we call democracy in this country when the parties have hijacked, the Democrat and Republican national parties have literally hijacked the electoral system, the party platforms, and people think it's just a two-party system. And Gary Johnson is out there trying to show that no, it's not. He was governor of New Mexico, and he's saying, listen, I'm the only governor who has a positive view or who people from his state view positively. And there is a third choice. There is a choice that's not the lesser of two evils.
Oh yeah, and I got to meet Gary for a few moments. I was kind of running back and forth, and let me say real quick that he's just like a really genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, what's he like? Tell me about him.
Oh, he's just like he has a great demeanor. He's just very like he listens a lot, and he like asks you how you're doing. He's not like pretentious at all, and he just wants to have everyone have a win-win situation. So
I loved it how he came out wearing a peace shirt. This is a politician coming in a t-shirt and a blazer. He's a millionaire. He was an entrepreneur and started up a construction business. But he could wear a suit like Romney and Obama, but he came in wearing a peace shirt, and he's like, I'm the only candidate that doesn't want to drop bombs on Iran.
Oh yeah, no. Let me tell you what. I saw an article today, and it was just heart-wrenching about like these the drone strikes that are happening in Pakistan, and like. There's a documentary, and I was watching it, and they're saying how the Pakistanis out in, I forget what region it is, I think it's the Wazir region, don't quote me on that, but they're saying how they're just frightened, they won't even go to school because they're frightened.
Wow. Yeah,
they don't even know when they'll strike.
My goodness. And so one last thing I wanted to touch just on the gun issue. I have a little button in my car that says guns save lives. It has a little heart, and people don't realize how much guns save lives. And Michael Cargill said, imagine a gun, imagine someone holding it, and depending on who you see, that really determines your view on guns. If you view someone holding it like, let's say, a small woman pointing it at a large scary man, you probably think guns are good because here's a small woman who's able to walk safely from her car or parking lot, and she can defend herself. But if you view like let's say a criminal holding a gun, pointing it at a poor woman and taking her purse, you probably think guns are bad. And the reality is that most people who own guns are honest citizens, and most times a gun is used is in self-defense, and it's not even fired. You just point it at the bad person, and the bad person runs away. And these statistics go unreported, Because, if I get stopped and I pull my gun on somebody and they run away, I'm not going to call the police. Why would I do that? These incidences go unreported, and people don't know how frequently a firearm can protect your life or protect the life of your loved ones when you have it on you. And in the state of Texas, you need a concealed handgun license, or you can keep it in your car. But people, especially Democrats, don't know this, or they just stick their heads in the sand about this.
I think it's kind of a cognitive dissonance if you really get at it. Oh, let's ban all guns. All right, fine. Will a criminal follow that rule?
I love that. Let's pass a law and say you can't hurt other people. Well, that's awesome. But who hurts other people? Well, criminals do. Do criminals obey the law? No, they don't. So does this law really prevent anybody from hurting anybody? Well, not really.
Unless you go into every citizen's homes and you basically search their homes without a warrant, or maybe you don't need a warrant anymore because you have a law where you can just do that. And then you have to keep track of every citizen, and then you lose your privacy.
We could have a big 1984 situation going on where everyone's spying on everybody. Then we'll be safe. Only then.
Those drones I was talking about, they're flying over U.S. airspace now.
And collecting information?
That's right.
Yeah, that's very unsettling to me. The speaking kind of locally, the state of Texas wanted to, the Department of Public Safety wanted to have license plate scanners installed on every public safety vehicle. So basically they're driving around, they see all the license plates of all the cars there, which is basically finding out who is there at a certain place at a certain time. And the ACLU stood up and said, what's the purpose of this? Why do you want to know who's at a certain place?
I think the official excuse is to track drug traffickers, but if you look at Eric Holder's situation, I'm not sure what the real purpose is
the
anymore.
Attorney General, yes. He was known for assisting gun smuggling into Mexico. It is actually something that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, under the Operation Fast and Furious, with the knowledge of Eric Holder, they basically smuggled guns from the United States into Mexico, into the hands of the cartel, in the hopes of tracking them.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they made money off of it. Just look at the Iran Contras. They were selling guns and drugs, and because they can't get the money from Congress, so they confiscate illegal items, and they probably sell them on the black market.
So instead of raising taxes or cutting the war, it seems that the government may prefer selling guns to the Mexican drug cartel to raise money.
I suspect so, but we wouldn't know because it's in national security's interest that we can't even open their documents.
So we can't know, but that is an interesting theory for sure. So, George, tell me what else the Libertarian Longhorns do. You're a rather influential group on campus, and you've been around for a while. So tell me some of the purposes of your organization, and things that y'all do, and maybe some future projects that y'all are working on. I know last year you did the free speech wall, which is very cool. So tell me what y'all got cooking.
Well, basically, I think our mission statement goes along the lines of we're a group seeking to spread the message of liberty and educate people, and more so than actually promote politics of our own taste or preference. And then along with that is just to empower individuals to feel good and be active in their own communities. But the message of liberty is pretty strong. And what we have up our sleeve this semester is we should be working with the Peaceful Streets Project, and we've been bouncing around the idea of doing a cop watch or a cop block in West Campus or Riverside. So we hope that we can get the larger student community to be aware of police accountability and police abuse.
Now, Austin Citizen, this is a big deal in Austin. A gentleman named Antonio Beeler, who is a graduate of Stanford Business School, who served in the United States Army. He's a veteran. He was arrested, Friday, for the third time for filming police. It's actually even in the Daily Texan. There's a picture of him down at the bottom. And he was arrested with a UT student, Sarah Dickerson, who's an art history graduate student. And they were arrested for filming police on 6th Street doing a sobriety test. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the First Amendment at work here. The First Amendment guarantees us 5 rights. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, and freedom to petition our government for redress of grievances. This is journalism right here. People going out with cameras and filming what's going on, whether you're a police or a politician or just a store owner. If you are on public property, you have the right to film and report what's going on. And now the police are clamping down on it, and they are restricting and inhibiting the First Amendment.
The icing, the cherry on top is that now the APD is actually filming the people filming them.
Really? They're turning the cameras on the citizens?
That's right.
What's the purpose of that? Or what is their stated purpose of that?
Oh, I'm not too familiar with that. I would love to know. I would love to know.
That's just amazing. We need to watch the watchers in case we see them on the street and so we can hassle them more. Maybe that's their goal.
I mean, I don't think we're there to hassle them. We're just there to like, hey man, this is friendly. If we're all here to help each other, and like we want the situation to come out the best. We want no one to get hurt.
Sure.
And you act differently when you're being watched by someone.
Absolutely. If the police were frisking somebody and that person then like punched the police, I would absolutely turn my camera over as evidence against that person who hit the police officer. Similarly, if the police officer did something that was outside their scope of power, that did something unconstitutional, that said something that was intimidating, or did something that they wouldn't want others to see, I would certainly turn that over as evidence, because we all need to be held accountable for our actions. Theoretically, police are there to enforce the law and hold people accountable. If you speed, they pull you over and give you a ticket. If you break someone's window and take their stuff, they're going to arrest you and hold you accountable. Police also need to be held accountable for their actions. And Antonio Bieler started Peaceful Streets, and he's working very hard to hold the police accountable, and the police keep on arresting him and restricting his First Amendment rights. And it is absolutely ridiculous that this is going on right here in this wonderful city of Austin, with such wonderful people, freedom-loving people, and our constitutional rights are just being trampled all over the place.
I went to the first couple of days of Occupy Austin, and from what I talked to the police, they were like really friendly and kind to me, and I think they were just there to make sure everyone was safe. So I'm surprised personally that this is like even becoming an issue, that there's even some sort of tension.
There are many great police officers, and sadly I have no idea how many terrible police officers that do bad things and that don't want to be held accountable for those things, and then also won't turn in other police officers who violate those laws. There's that. What is that? The blue wall, the blue shield. What is that term for basically police officers don't rat each other out regardless of what happens, unless it's really, really egregious.
Oh, I don't know the
blue wall of silence. That's what it is.
All right,
you just Internal Affairs says we investigate crimes committed by police officers, but in reality they are our police officers, and they're friends with the police officers who are being investigated. And should it shock us that Internal Affairs never turns anything up against the police officers, even when they're shooting unarmed black men here in Austin? Nathaniel Sanders was sleeping in his car and he ends up shot. Somehow, no one gets really charged for that. It's just inexcusable, the conduct of some police officers and the fact that they're not being charged. And this also goes to our district attorney, Rosemary Limburg. She has not prosecuted any police officer. It's absolutely ridiculous. And Chief Acevedo has refused to release videotape of Antonio Bieler's first arrest that would prove whether or not he spit on a cop or not, which was the reason for the arrest. The police are covering their tracks, the chief of police is covering the tracks, and the district attorney, Rosemary Limburg, is not prosecuting them. It's basically the government just covering each other's butts, and we the citizens are getting hosed. We're not able to exercise our freedom of speech, our freedom, our First Amendment rights, and now we're getting arrested for exercising those rights.
I think that's just kind of the nature of bureaucracy in general. I mean, I saw a movie the other day by Bertolucci. He had that famous movie, this Oscar award-winning, called The Last Emperor. And there's like this famous scene where there's all these bureaucrats and they're all worshiping this like the emperor, and he's like 9 years old or whatnot. And he asks like, why are they doing that? And he realizes that as long as they worship him, they can like steal chickens from like the commoners or whatnot. So the moment that someone is held accountable, they can't do those things anymore. So
I absolutely agree. Once we hold both the government, which needs to be held accountable, and the law enforcement branch of government once we hold them accountable and they see that we, the citizens, will not tolerate them violating the law or them passing laws that are unconstitutional or violating our civil rights, people will snap back into shape. Right now they think they can get away with violating our civil rights, and once enough people get passionate enough about this, we're going to reach a tipping point, and people are going to band together and say, no, you can't do that, and you better stop. And at that point, I think they will stop.
I think I like to stay away from the us versus them, even remotely close seeming language, because really what it comes down to is that we need to build a community. We need to relate to each other as like individuals, human to human interface. We're like, hey, I have a family, like I don't want to get shot, you don't want to get hurt, we're all here, we all want to be happy, be safe, be healthy.
You're right, thank you for pointing that out. It shouldn't be confrontational between the police or the government and the citizenry. We are all people with families, and we are all children of God, and no one wants to hurt or harm another person. We just need to respect each other's rights and demand that government or private citizen respect our rights.
Yeah, I would like everyone to respect my rights and respect me as an individual. That'd be wonderful.
So what else do you have cooking? So you're working with the Peaceful Streets Project. You can check out more information at www.peacefulstreets.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Also, we have up our sleeve the Students for Liberty's. We're hosting them, but Student for Liberty has their regional conference, and we're hosting them here in Austin, and that'll be November 17th. And hopefully, we'll have some of the Liberty movement's biggest speakers, and it'll be a fun time. You guys should sign up.
Excellent. Welcome back to Lone Star Politics on KVRX 91.7. I'm the Doctor of Politics, Dr. Love, and I'm here with George McHugh of the Libertarian Longhorns. Recently, the Libertarian Longhorns were able to get Gary Johnson, the former governor of New Mexico, and the current candidate for the Libertarian Party for president here on campus. That was this Monday. We also had a number of different freedom activists that were there as well. And George McHugh has been here in the studio telling us about some of the great things that the Libertarian Longhorns are doing out in the community. So, George, what got you involved in the Liberty movement? Was there an event that served as a tipping point for you? Like, was there an awakening for you, or was this just kind of a gradual phasing in for you, something that made sense from the way that you were brought up, and you knew that you had this philosophy of personal accountability and small government?
I definitely feel like I grew up in an environment that encouraged that, but I also was a really, really rebellious kid. In terms of ideology, I was pretty respectful in general, but I tried everything from like Trotskyism and permanent revolution to like objectivism, and then I started YouTubing a lot of videos of Ron Paul, and I moved from there to reading Murray Rothbard, and I kept going down the rabbit hole. So.
With the information that's available online, it really is a rabbit hole. I got around 2009. 2007, this summer, I just started going on YouTube. I read about fluoride. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I watched some 9/11 Truth videos that I don't necessarily agree with everything in those videos, but they just opened up my eyes to like some of the inconsistencies from the government's perspective. And that was my rabbit hole. And after that, I was like, wow, I have real trouble believing the things that the government is telling me that just don't seem to make sense. And once you see time and time again how they've lied to us in the past, you really don't have to look far to see the government lying to you. They lie to us about statistics all the time. I was in economics class here at UT, and the professor said, okay, the government just revised their statistics for GDP based upon, it's 4 months after the statistics were due. They're like, and they said that we've earned like, $1 billion less than what they said originally. What does this teach us? Don't trust the government, because whether it's incompetence or deceit, they just have a hard time giving us the cold hard facts.
Can I actually do a plug real quick?
Please.
Yeah, we actually have the one of the largest Austrian economics clubs at a university campus. So really what that means is that our group, the Mises Circle, teaches subjectivist economics. So there's two different theories out there of the theory of value, and one of them is subjective theory of value, and the other ones are cost production, social theory, labor theory, but they all amount to being a different theory of value. And basically, we learn and read economics that goes completely contrary to what you would see or hear in an economics department here at the University of Texas.
I have these debates with people. In fact, if you listen to the hour previous to this, In the Know, it's a great show. I'm a guest on that show. The host Joey says, "No, we need to tax income, but encourage spending because spending is what drives the economy." And I thought, but people need to have money to spend, and if you tax income, you're taking away money that they would invest in a new business that would create jobs, or money that they would spend in the economy. And for some reason, Keynesians just don't get the idea that you don't want to deprive people of their money from income tax because that means they can't invest it and create new jobs. The government doesn't create jobs in this country. It never has. Those jobs are subsidized by you, the taxpayer. Business owners and entrepreneurs create jobs. And when you tax income, you take money away from business owners and entrepreneurs and startups that would create jobs. And it's amazing to me that people in the government think, oh, we're going to create jobs by passing this law. You create jobs by getting out of the way and letting the free market work and letting people, you have an idea by letting you start a business. And if you fail, well, then you fail. But if you succeed, great, we got a new business and maybe you're working for yourself. Maybe you got someone else working for you. Maybe you can hire a maid now to clean your house. That's how we grow the economy and that's how we build businesses and that's how we create jobs.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, I would like to plug you. Everyone's welcome to come. It's Mondays at 7 o'clock, Wagner Hall, 308. And the Libertarian Longhorns, this week we'll have Heather Fazio, the Executive Director of Texans for Accountable Government. She'll be speaking at 7 o'clock in room Garrison 2.128. Once again, that's 7 o'clock, Garrison 2.128.
That's wonderful. Heather Fazio is one of the most active activists in Austin. She's frequently down at City Hall. They all know her by name, and frankly, they're terrified of her because she comes armed with the facts every time, and they have trouble disputing what she says. She's very upset with the way city government has been going, and she cites specific facts and quotes their reports, and they're like, uh-oh, someone's actually following us. This might be a little bit problematic.
She definitely brings a lot of energy to the table, so Thursday will be a lot of fun.
That'll be fun to see Heather Fazio. And for those of you who aren't extremely familiar with Austrian economics, that's the type of economics that Ron Paul follows. If you watch any of his YouTube videos or if you consider his views on monetary policy or the economy of the value of money and how central banks manipulate it and so forth. That's all Austrian economics, Ron Paul. So that sort of group is meeting. It's called the Mises Group?
The Mises Circle, that's right. Mondays at 7 p.m., Wagner Hall 308.
That's excellent. It seems like y'all are doing a lot of educational and thought-provoking things here on campus.
Yeah, we hope to do a couple of other more thought-provoking things, but those are still in the work. But I'll let you know whenever we know for sure, too.
Awesome. Well, George, thank you so much for coming on. It was a real pleasure having you.
All right, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.
We have just finished with George McHugh of the Libertarian Longhorns, a group on campus that is dedicated to educating people about freedom and liberty and personal responsibility. Just this past Monday, they were able to bring Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson right here to campus. Now, candidate Johnson said things that most politicians won't say. He told us the truth. He said that the war on drugs is a failure, and he would end it as soon as he took office. He said that marijuana is less dangerous than alcohol. What politician do you know that would tell you such blinding truth? Sadly, the United States federal government has refused to tell us the truth about marijuana and how beneficial it is to people with certain diseases and really how safe it is for people to use compared to other drugs. For example, the federal government considers marijuana to be a Schedule I narcotic, meaning it is as dangerous as heroin, while cocaine is a Schedule II narcotic, meaning it is, according to the federal government, cocaine is less dangerous and less addictive than marijuana, and marijuana is as dangerous and as addictive as heroin. I challenge you to find one person, doctor, private citizen, or member of the government who actually believes that and will come on record and say, yes, marijuana is as dangerous as heroin, and yes, marijuana is more dangerous and addictive than cocaine. Nobody will say that because it's just not true. And scientific studies show that with lab rats and with people. People die from cocaine and heroin overdoses. Nobody dies of a marijuana overdose. And it's shameful that our government has refused to reschedule marijuana to where it should be. So Gary Johnson wants to end that hypocrisy in government and just be truthful with the people and actually let them know the facts about things, starting with the war on drugs. And let's talk about the war on terror. The war on terror started after 9/11, and George W. Bush declared an international war on terror where we would seek and destroy terrorism wherever it was found. This drove us to Afghanistan and Afghanistan and Iraq. And we have been at war since then. This is 10 years we've been at war with the war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan. Gary Johnson wants to end those wars right away. He is also the only candidate that does not want to drop bombs on Iran. That was a wonderful thing to see from a presidential candidate, to say that he does not want to drop bombs on Iran. So what does that mean to have a presidential candidate who's actually going to tell us the truth? Well, if you're in the establishment, if you're currently in government, or if you are a member of one of the two political parties and believe that it should only be Republicans and Democrats running for office, someone like Gary Johnson is really pretty scary, because he's telling people the things that the other two parties aren't telling us. He's telling us the truth. And quite frankly, he holds what I believe is the opinion of most Americans, which is that we should not be at war. We should not drop bombs on Iran. We should not continue the failed war on drugs. Even Obama calls the war on drugs a failure. And yet he himself has allowed medical marijuana dispensaries to be raided by the DEA. Under his watch, the federal government has trampled over states' rights, states that have legalized medical marijuana, and he has busted up those dispensaries and had people arrested. So why is Gary Johnson such a threat? And why have most Americans not heard of Gary Johnson? He's actually polling at about 6% right now. So why is it so low if he wants to end the wars and legalize marijuana, something that 70% of Texans want medical marijuana. So, and most Americans view the war on drugs as a failure, so this should be something that most people are favorable to. So why is he not well known? Well, I read the Financial Times and the New York Times today. I'm not promoting those news sources, but they give those papers away free at the business school. And there were articles on both Romney and Obama. Yet there's not one article on Gary Johnson. The University of Texas, the Daily Texan newspaper, they did cover Gary Johnson coming to school, which was awesome. It was great to see some coverage of him. But there is very little as far as the national news covering the Libertarian candidate who served as governor for 8 years in New Mexico, a Democratic state. This Republican got elected governor in a Democratic state because what he says reaches across both parties. So I hope that the news media will actually be fair and allow Gary Johnson into the debates. Imagine a debate, a presidential debate, where you got the Republican who says we need to lower taxes, and you got the Democrat who says I'm doing a good job and we need to stay the course, and you got a Libertarian who says we need to balance the budget immediately and we need to cut entitlements. It's not a popular thing to do, but we need to do it if we're going to keep this country solvent. And we need to end the war on drugs. Obama, you said you didn't like the war on drugs. Let's take some serious steps towards it. And Gary Johnson believes that the government should not be involved in marriage, meaning he supports gay marriage. You should be able to get married to whomever you want to, according to him. and that's something I believe as well. It's something Obama said he believes, and he's taken some slow steps getting there. I don't know, it took so long though, and I don't know why he just doesn't legalize gay marriage at the federal level or promote that. He says he wants to leave it up to the states. So why not promote states' rights in general? Clearly, he doesn't support states' rights with marijuana because he raided marijuana dispensaries in Montana and California. So there's no consistency in his philosophy regarding states' rights and what people should or should not be doing regarding putting controlled substances into their bodies or who they get to spend the rest of their life with as a romantic partner. But Gary Johnson's very clear. You should be able to get to put into your body whatever you want as long as you don't harm other people, and you should be allowed to marry whomever you choose. You get to decide who you spend your time with. These sound like outrageous things, but when you think about it, these are our God-given rights. We decide what goes into our own body. We are given our bodies. We are responsible for these temples. Our bodies are a gift from our Creator. I believe that a divine Creator made me, made you, made the squirrel, made a blade of grass, and made a flower. We are all creations of this divine essence, whatever you want to call it. And who is a government to say that they have control over your body, which was a gift to you from our Creator? You are responsible for your body. It is your responsibility to keep it healthy and fit. It is not the government's responsibility. The government can't police us to keep us healthy. If the government were responsible for our health, how good of a job are they doing? A third of Americans are overweight. 20% are obese. It might be more than a third of Americans who are overweight. A lot of Americans are overweight. My goodness. And look at the food that we eat. We eat such terrible food from fast food restaurants loaded with fat, with beef that's been injected with hormones. Who knows what the long-term effects of those are on our bodies? We eat genetically modified foods all the time with no labels. The government has done nothing to label them, and in fact has, there are a couple states that are now pushing forward on that. California will soon be voting on whether or not to require labeling of genetically modified foods. This would be a huge step, and the producers of genetically modified foods are not happy about this, nor are those that sell genetically modified foods. In fact, I read an article in the New York Times that says that large food producers that sell lots of food, like General Mills, sell organic food, and they make a profit off organic food. Yet they are opposed to labeling genetically modified foods because most of the food they sell is genetically modified. So the government has done a very poor job in protecting our health. For example, cigarettes are legal. Now, I don't think cigarettes should necessarily be illegal, yet they're extremely, extremely harmful, but they are legal. And you look at marijuana, which is not nearly as harmful as cigarettes, and that is illegal. That makes no sense. Look at the city of New York. They banned large soft drinks. You can't buy like a jumbo soft drink. That's how they're going to protect against obesity in New York City. Well, how's that working out? You can buy 2 drinks that equal up to that. And why would you limit soda? Why not limit alcohol? You don't go into bars and say you can't get a liter of beer at a bar, or you can't order 2 pints at once. They haven't restricted alcohol. Alcohol is much more dangerous than soda. So the government is really going about this the wrong way if they're looking to protect our health. We got sugar in all of our foods. We got fast food on every corner that is really not healthy for us. It's legal to smoke cigarettes. My gosh, if the government's protecting our health, my goodness, I don't want that protection if this is the result. And the result's even worse for our children. A third of children are going to grow up with type 2 diabetes. They're going to develop it. That's amazing. Can you imagine with government-run healthcare how expensive that's going to be to treat these children? And what's the cause of type 2 diabetes? Well, I read a book on the history of sugar, and it's quite clear that excessive intake of sugar is a contributing factor to diabetes, as is an unhealthy diet aside from sugar and a lack of exercise. Fast food is loaded with sugar all over the place. I got it wasn't a Healthy Choice granola bar, it was a Natural Valley granola bar. They list ingredients in order of how much there is in that product. The first ingredient was like oats. The second ingredient was sugar. This is a granola bar that's supposed to be healthy, and sugar is the second most common ingredient. Sugar is all over the place, and our excessive consumption of sugar is really leading to diabetes in this country, if you want to look at it. And doctors, instead of insisting that we cut down our sugar intake, they prescribe insulin. Why is that? In my opinion, doctors prescribe insulin rather than a change in diet and insist on a change in diet because they prescribe insulin that keeps you, the patient, coming back. There are many great doctors that want to heal patients, and those doctors are wonderful. And there are some doctors that are in medicine because it's a good business. They prescribe pills because it's a Band-Aid. It keeps you coming back. They prescribe insulin because it just balances your insulin glucose levels for the time being, but it doesn't cure you. The cure to diabetes is a lifestyle change, in my opinion. The cure to diabetes is cutting out the simple sugars, is eating a healthy diet, is exercising, and weaning yourself off of insulin. Gradually, as you eliminate simple sugars from your diet, I've read that you can decrease your need for insulin over time. Why aren't doctors telling us this? That's not the way the medical profession works. You don't go to the doctor to get advice on what to eat. You don't go to the doctor to hear something you could read on the internet about how sugar contributes to diabetes and how you can help yourself by not eating so many sweets. We go to the doctor for medicine. We want a prescription. We want them to do something that we can't do. We want them to prescribe medicine. And that mentality is really dangerous. And it's causing, and we see the results, diabetes everywhere in America. We are the most advanced civilization in the history of the world, and we can't keep our population healthy. We are overindulging in every way, and we are fat. A lot of us are ignorant or lack knowledge in what's going on, and it's just getting worse and worse. And regarding things the government does for our health, they claim to be protecting our teeth with fluoride in the water. Yet studies show that putting fluoride in the water is not that helpful to teeth and is extremely damaging to our brains, especially the brains of our children. When you put a chemical like fluoride in the water, babies drink it when they drink baby formula, particularly babies of low incomes, because the mothers are working and can't breastfeed. So you get a bunch of poor babies, a lot of whom are minorities, and you're giving them tap water. Tap water is full of all kinds of stuff, but when you add fluoride to it, this fluoride crosses the blood-brain barrier because it's not fully formed in infants, and now chemicals are crossing the blood-brain barrier and getting into the brain of developing babies. Do you see a problem with this? I think this is a terrible thing to be exposing our infants to this. And it's really unfair because it targets the low-income families and minorities. Would anyone out there, in the government or not in the government, say it is right to have a health practice that damages, that harms particularly blacks, Latinos, and low-income families? Does anyone think that's okay? If you don't, and I don't believe anyone in the government thinks that is okay either, then they should stop the practice of adding fluoride to the water, because that is what's happening, and that is what the data and science show is happening. So can the government protect our health? I certainly don't think so, and it's proven right now. Just look at us. We're obese, we play video games all day, we smoke cigarettes, we drink too much. For some reason we've criminalized marijuana, which is a medicine for many different diseases, including depression, insomnia, anorexia, anxiety, multiple sclerosis, all kinds of disorders, and yet we've criminalized it. We've thrown people in jail for trying to treat themselves and medicate themselves with it. It's just amazing what we consider is going on in this country and how the government claims to be doing what's in our best interest regarding our health. We need to take a short break, but listener, I'd like you to consider this. If you could change one thing about the government that would make the biggest difference to the health of our nation, what would it be? If you could choose one thing to have the government do to change the health of our nation for the better, what would it be? Before the commercial break, I asked you one question. If you could change one thing about the government to promote good health in these United States, what would it be? Maybe you'd like to end water fluoridation to protect the brains and bodies of our developing youth, and to end dental fluorosis, which is the white spotting on teeth that you see from over-ingesting fluoride. Maybe you'd like to label genetically modified foods, so that way citizens can choose what substances go into their bodies. Maybe you would like to legalize medical marijuana, or legalize all drugs and end the war on drugs, so that way people can have safe access to marijuana and treat their depression, anxiety, and multiple sclerosis without being afraid of being arrested for treating their disease. Maybe you would like a warning put on sugar, a warning put on Coca-Cola, a warning put on all soft drinks and sugary items, so that people know that sugar is, consumption of sugar is related to the development of diabetes. Maybe you'd like to get rid of all fast food so that Americans actually have to cook their meals, or maybe have requirements of the health standards of fast food. I actually took my little brother in the Big Brother Little Brother program. I took him to a fast food restaurant, took him to McDonald's, and I bought him a drink and a meal, which is a burger and fries. And the calories, I made him count up the calories that were in those three things that he ate. The calories were 1,600 calories. Now, the dietary needs of Americans is based upon a 2,000 calorie diet. And here it is, a teenager is consuming 1,600 calories in one meal. And that's just by ordering 3 things off of the McDonald's menu. So there are many things that we could do to improve our health in the United States. Now, what would I do to improve the health of Americans? I frankly would get the government out of the health industry altogether. That would end the water fluoridation. That would allow citizens to petition food producers to label genetically modified foods. That would legalize all drugs, so that way you can have safe access to marijuana and other things that could help treat some illnesses that you may be suffering from. Oh, by the way, marijuana is also very helpful for cancer patients, not only those who are undergoing chemotherapy and want relief from the pain and need help with their appetite. Studies have also shown that THC and CBD, which is cannabidiol, when you combine those two and you apply that locally, let's say you have a brain cancer and you inject this THC and CBD to that cancer in the brain, it actually kills cancer cells but does not hurt healthy cells. So marijuana could actually be a cure for cancer. Could be, but the government doesn't want to fund the research to do that. And certainly the pharmaceutical companies don't want to do it, because if you can grow your own cure for cancer, there goes all that money that they are getting for their expensive chemotherapy that is an ongoing treatment. So to make America healthy, I just would ask the government to step aside and let Americans choose what is in their best interest, and to stop these blanket health practices like water fluoridation, so that we as Americans, we as free people, we as children of God who are given this temple that we are responsible for taking care of, that we can make the decisions that we need to make to keep ourselves as healthy and happy as possible.
I think the fact that I got reelected by a bigger margin the second time than the first time in a state that's 2-to-1 Democrat speaks volumes to the fact that people really do appreciate good stewardship of tax dollars. Over this last election cycle, there were 3 polls, there was a study. One of them was the favorability of all the presidential candidates in his or her own state. There was only one presidential candidate viewed favorably in his or her own state, and that was me. And how does that work out? Well, in New Mexico, people wave at me with all 5 fingers, not just one. And then they did a study on job creation. Which presidential candidate had the best record when it came to job creation? Well, that was me. And the response to that was the same response I gave as governor of New Mexico. I didn't create one single job as governor of New Mexico. The private sector creates jobs. But because I controlled all the boards and commissions, because I appointed the heads of all the agencies, in essence, I controlled all rules and regulations in New Mexico. And I want to suggest to you that rules and regulations got better on a daily basis, and that getting better was just a root in common sense. If it wasn't going to make us any safer, if it wasn't going to make us any more healthy, if it was just going to add time and money to our lives, why have those rules and regulations? And then lastly, and I think this is really important, the ACLU came out with a report card on all of the presidential candidates last December. ACLU, a group dedicated to the Constitution, a group dedicated to the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they came out with a report card. 24 Liberty Torches was a perfect score. I think this is really important. Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum had 0 Liberty Torches out of 24. Newt Gingrich had 4 Liberty Torches out of 24. President Obama had 16 Liberty Torches out of 24. Ron Paul had 18 Liberty Torches out of 24. And Gary Johnson had 21 Liberty Torches out of 24. So, something that's very, very important in this presidential election is that I believe that I am going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. Now, we bomb Iran, we're going to find ourselves in a 2-year bombing maintenance program of Iran. And where is the military threat? And where was the largest demonstration in support of the United States after 9/11? It was in Iran. It was in Tehran, where over 1 million demonstrators showed up in support of the United States. We bomb Iran, we're going to find ourselves with another 100 million enemies to this country that we would not otherwise have but for our military interventions. I am the only candidate that wants to end the war in Afghanistan tomorrow and bring the troops home. The root of all evil, politicians that beat their chest and talk about saving us from all of the ills of the world, one of those ills being the terrorists, and in the name of fighting terrorism, involve our military in interventions that, but for these interventions, we would not have hundreds of millions of enemies to this country that we would otherwise not have. In the name of protecting us against the terrorist threat, we have tens of thousands of innocent people dying in these countries where we militarily intervene, and we have our men and service women coming back in body bags or coming back with their limbs blown off. Let's stop with the military interventions that continue to have us as the bully of the world, not the savior of the world. I'm the only candidate that believes marriage equality is a constitutionally guaranteed right on par with civil rights of the 60s. Marriage equality now. I'm the only candidate that wants to end the drug wars now. Legalize marijuana now. It's on the ballot in Colorado to legalize marijuana, to regulate marijuana like alcohol. I think it speaks for itself. I think it's going to be the first of 50 state dominoes that are going to bring rational drug policy to this country. Citizens of Denver 6 years ago voted to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. It's going to happen in Colorado. If it doesn't happen in Colorado, it's soon to happen. We are at a tipping point. It's because we're talking about it, and the more we talk about it, the better people understand that this is just like the prohibition of alcohol.